Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review Perpetrator, and this is a new horror film coming your way on Shudder from writer-director Jennifer Reeder, whose previous film The Night's End came out on Shudder and was part of VHS 94. And I'm a big fan of the work that Reeder has done. Got a chance to interview her, so you could go check that out on my channel as well. But this film focuses on a reckless teenager named Jonny who winds up being sent to live with her estranged Aunt Hildie, played by Alicia Silverstone. And leading up to her 18th birthday, she starts to feel these things happening to her body and starting to feel these powers that she has deep down coming to the surface. And this film deals with her trying to connect and better understand what's going on with herself while also trying to figure out what's going on with some missing girls from her high school. And at the core of this, actress Kia McKernan, who plays Jonny, she's fantastic. She's charismatic. She really holds this film together, anchoring it in the lead, and is able to go from a wide range of different emotions and different levels of her performance, especially as she's feeling these powers coming over her. And speaking of these powers, this isn't like a straight, like, it's not vampirism, it's not this, it's not that. It's something very unique and different that you don't really see in terms of this. You know, the idea of this parallel of like puberty and coming of age with some kinds of powers, that makes sense. That's been done quite a bit in film. This idea with this ability to like morph yourself and this connection with your blood, it feels very deep rooted in a young woman's process of coming of age in terms of menstruation and things like that. But also, it's very interesting what they do with this, like masking, this transformation, and how it can be utilized and leaned on in a world where there's a lot of things not going so well in terms of minorities, in terms of women, in terms of sexual violence. And this is a really interesting film in the way that it tackles a lot of different ideas, how that aspect tackles police, how that aspect tackles sexual advances and this sexual violent predator, this perpetrator. But what I appreciate is, like, this title, the most obvious thing is there's this perpetrator doing these things to these young women, but in terms of how this film is tackling how these different aspects of our lives come, how women coming into age and how these things that are not asked for but are thrust upon them, it's interesting how this film tackles those themes. Overall, I think the cast is strong. There's one particular performance that stands out here. Christopher Lowell plays the principal of the school, and there's a lot of interesting places where this character goes, but he is completely unhinged. And there's certain things that happen in this film that don't feel as much of a surprise as I think the film hoped that they would, but it still pays off in a pretty impactful and pretty unexpected way. There's certainly strong hintings of certain things, and when those revelations come to fruition, it hits in a certain way where you're like, okay, I could have saw that coming based off of this, that, or the other. But it still has an interesting way that it advances the story. Alicia Silverstone, like, she's definitely going for this, like, cold aunt figure, and I'm not 100% convinced of her performance. It was a choice. It was an interesting choice, but I don't know if it really worked the way that she was probably hoping that it would. It didn't really connect with me. But overall, I think the young performers in this film playing these young women or young men at the school really stand out. This feels like an interesting and fresh take on this coming-of-age allegory and horror. And the way that it goes about and the perspective it comes, not with like a vampiric lens or like a werewolf lens or something more common like that, it's able to tackle some interesting ideas, and I think the film does well. And I think Reeder delivers an impactful and visually interesting film as well. There's one particular sequence towards the climax where there's a confrontation in a very unique space, and it's unnerving and horrifying in all kinds of different ways. The use of blood in this film it's heavy. It's used a lot and used in a lot of interesting ways, but be warned, there's a lot of bodily fluids here, and they come a lot. Bad phrasing. But anyway, this film, I think, is a really effective horror film. It keeps getting me more excited to see what Reader does next, and I hope people go check this out on Shudder and show this some love. But those are my thoughts on Perpetrator. Let me know what you think, and let's talk some movies. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.